Chapter 2. Theo. It is the duty of the old to die for the young. It is the duty of the powerful to lift up the weak. I sat at my desk, pondering my next words carefully. The entire lecture hall stared at me, full of eager eyes on bright young faces, waiting for a chance to devour my words and absorb the meaning into their rich minds. I was always amazed by the stark contrast between Yora and Alkebu. So often, those with money and means use learning as a medium for killing time. But here, where learning was a privilege, the students cared so much more. Sadly, though, I was all out of words and all out of time. The university bell would ring in a matter of minutes. No way I could impart the deep annals of knowledge still planned for the rest of the semester. But another duty called to me, one more shameful than I cared to admit. I rolled in my wheelchair from my desk to the lectern. I think we'll end today's lesson here. I took my small round spectacles off and started cleaning them with shaking hands, more wrinkled than an old prune.
But Professor Mercer, we still have 4 minutes left in class,
one of my students said. Anita was her name. Yes, well, I put my spectacles back on. I'm afraid I have an announcement to make. Failing students in so complete a manner broke my heart. This day marks the last day of my role as a professor. The class erupted in gasps.
But why, Professor?
A student asked.
It's not fair,
said another.
Is the university kicking you out?
Calm now, students, I laughed. Please do not mourn this old man. I go in peace to the last days I'll ever know. Family has called me away, and it's unlikely I shall be returning. Dr. Izanaki will be taking my place from here on out, but know that I leave here proud to call myself your educator. I've never had so great an honor as to teach 43 students of such promising talent that will achieve heights I could never even understand. The bell rang. Class ended, but not a soul stirred.
Thank you, Professor,
said Ikemba, one of my brightest students.
Thank you, Professor,
said a few more voices. Suddenly the whole class was shouting thanks and we'll miss you all around. Their words were overpowering me. The dam of emotions burst as tears from my eyes. Don't be late on my behalf, I said, grin brimming on my face. Keep moving forward to the bright future I know you're all capable of. After a while, the students slowly shuffled out one by one until only Ikemba remained.
Professor, he said, why did you not tell me about this? How will we continue our experiments?
I rolled to my desk and placed a folder from the drawer atop it. Take it, I told him. That is all my research into lingering madness. I took out a small key and placed it on the folder. That is the key to the research facility.
Professor, he gasped, this is a huge responsibility.
And it's one I'm sure you can manage. You've studied with me for 3 years. You understand just as much as I do the effects gates have on people. All those born from generations previous to yours do not have the same level of resistance. I know you can fix all those afflicted by madness. Ikemba sucked in a deep breath and took the folder and key from the desk.
On that note, Professor, I believe I may have already found what we need.
Is that so? I almost couldn't believe my luck.
We've been very close to a cure for a long time. As you said, the key ingredient was blood from the Dark Sea, but what we've been missing is the proper component to react to the blood.
Could it be so simple? All this time I had been looking in the wrong area of research. Then again, there was always one ingredient I knew for certain would complete my serum, had I access to it. Do you mean spindlethorn? I asked. Ikemba looked flabbergasted.
You knew?
I sighed. Hope lost in a moment. Yora blocks shipments of certain ingredients and restricts access to others. When I saw Spindlethorn on that list, I inquired into his properties. Unfortunately, given how powerful the council is, I could never acquire a sample, and believe most is contained in a controlled facility impossible to reach. So I've been searching for a replacement of equal power, or some combination that mimics the effects of the serum.
So there was even more to all this than you let on?
I nodded. I'm sorry for never telling you. It just didn't seem necessary to mention. I grabbed my satchel and placed it on my lap, prepared to leave my classroom of 20 years. Ikemba took the handles of my chair from behind and pushed me along.
Where are we going, Professor?
That's very kind of you, Ikemba, but please, don't waste your free period on a washed-up old man like myself. He chuckled.
It is your last day, Professor. Let me help you transition to the next part of your journey.
I smiled. Take me around campus one last time. I want to see the sights. Ikemba brought me around to see the university. Wooden pillars engraved with stories of myth lined the lower level of outdoor walkways. For the most part, it was a small campus with only 3 round-top main buildings, all forming a partial rectangle around a central courtyard and dorms just across a sports field. The main courtyard filled with a fountain and flowery bushes extended to the front gate, where beyond the arched entrance lay the short walk to the beach and the city. I elected not to visit the research labs between the dorms and the central buildings. I'd rather my work be cleanly left behind. I think you're on to something, I told Ikemba on the way to the front entrance. Looking for something that reacts to the blood of the Dark Sea rather than stifles it will open brand new venues for you to explore.
But it won't be the same without you, Professor.
Then it will be better, I replied giddily. For once in my life, I feel as old as I look, which means I'll only be getting in the way of things for youths like yourself. We reached the front entrance. I gently pushed Ikemba's hands away and began rolling myself. Take care and study hard, were my parting words as I took the path towards the city. I stopped at my home halfway, a little cottage just off the beaten path. Once inside, I placed my satchel atop the dining table and pulled out a syringe full of a silvery liquid tinged black. The effects would be instant and last a week, maybe 2 if I kept the physical strain to a minimum. But even if 1 vial ran out, I had another 7 prepared. It almost felt like a last meal, committing myself back to a life I so despised, all for the proper formula. The life I had grown so accustomed to, the life I cherished, would be tossed aside like a ship in the heart of a storm. Though, if everything went according to plan, perhaps I could die happily, and maybe even move on to whatever awaited me beyond the choking coil of mortality. With a deep breath, I injected the liquid into my arm above the brand of the Reapers. A rush of energy pulsed through me like electricity, sparking the circuits of my broken body. Aching joints suddenly became numb to the pain and moved without a groan, as though greased. For over half a century, I confined myself to the chair, nearly forgetting what it was to have a body capable of motion at will. I stepped out from my chair and stood up, just as any ordinary man might, and for a brief moment, I felt young again. But only for a moment. As quickly as I rose, a sudden jolt of pain shot through my right knee. One of my springs came loose, I thought to myself. Where's my damn cane? I grumbled. My old body limped casually to the bedroom and opened up my wardrobe. I groped around for the hidden panel in the back to reveal a keyhole. Inserting the key from my necklace, I opened up a secret compartment containing relics of a past impossible to forget. An old hat, duster, sniper rifle, black steel mask with no socket for eyes, and a cane stared back at me. Tools of the trade. I strapped the rifle to my back and put on my duster. I switched my walking cane for my proper one. My mask went into my satchel, which I took with me outside to the stable. Ghost the Second whinnied at my arrival, still as beautiful a horse as ever with his milky white skin. I attached the suitcase to the saddle and jumped on. With a little kick,
Ghost II spurred on towards the future.
2 days later, I arrived at Ellsbury Hollow, a quiet harbor town clouded by steam. Industry ran through the air, powering businessmen and women to their destinations. On the docks, Warehouse 9 was where my instructions took me. A dockhand greeted me at the side door. Wasn't expecting an old man. The gruff man sneered. What brings you here? I'm here for the operation, I said simply. The dockhand burst into laughter, but once I showed the brand, his smile faded to nothingness. Now, if everything is in order, step aside. My words seemed to sting him like ice. The dockhand moved on to let me pass. Can you even fight in your condition? He asked as I walked in. I'm a lot more capable than I appear, I snorted. Within, a group of 6 individuals all sat around boxes before a man. Their leader was adorned with silver jewelry over a purple cloak, a mage of Azaeos from the world capital, Archimodesi. He was a long way from home.
Since they have not returned, the leader spoke to his men, we should assume either the spell went sideways or they lost control of the beast. Do we still proceed? One of the cultists asked. Yes. The target is a church enforcer, but she is still just one woman.
The man turned to me.
Are you the one Councilman Kaladesh sent?
I am.
And I assume you're already familiar with the mission.
I nodded.
Good. The boat arrives in a few hours, so make yourself comfortable.
I did just that, passing the time away outside the back entrance, leaning next to the door. Flipping through the news, I spotted a small headline about an embassy overseas. Another ploy. I took a bite of bread saved from morning breakfast, still stale. Magra buzzed around my head, looking for a quick snack. They were akin to large flies, except they were green, had pincers, and a stinger. Magra bit victims and stole just a small fraction of one's life force to sustain their own. When threatened, they stabbed their victims with their stingers and injected a toxin that caused the victim to feel lightheaded and slightly numb to pain. Normally, such hideous creatures were only attracted to a strong life force, and though mine certainly was enhanced, the nature of my transformation often acted as a repellent against such pests. Thankfully, they were minor in number, just enough to be annoying but not enough to cause mass devastation. Shoo! I spat, trying to wave the bugs away. There's nothing for you here, just a decrepit old man on his way out. The bugs seemed to respond favorably, off to annoy someone else. My mouth fell agape. My eyes followed the path of the Magra, watching them move towards a woman with long locks of raven black hair, wearing the attire of the Reapers. Even without being able to see the face behind her black steel mask, I knew exactly who walked only a few paces to my left, heading straight for a wall. Cassandra. It had been more than half a millennia since I laid eyes on her. The next moment confirmed it. Without breaking her stride, the woman passed straight through the wall, not even bothering to glance my way, as though I didn't even exist. As though we had not fought wars together, or even knew each other as only brother and sister might. No. She simply walked inside the warehouse without so much as a reaction to my presence. Always so focused on the mission ahead. Gunshots and clatter sounded from within the warehouse. The mission, I gasped aloud, realizing why she was even there. I tossed the newspaper aside and entered into the building. Boxes obscured my view of the fight, but from the sound of the diminishing chance, Cassandra was winning. I crept close to the boxes and cursed. A rush of energy followed by a slight ache in my bones surged within my body. Suddenly, I could see through the boxes as though they weren't even there. What I saw was a massacre. Limbs and blood decorated the warehouse red. An assortment of spectral tentacles and burn stains from magical flames left their mark as a sorry attempt at killing Cassandra. Only the leader remained, using an enchantment to increase his speed. Cassandra kept pace, though, using her inhuman strength to wield her scythe in one hand, while using the other to fire her revolver. The mage reached into a sleeve and rolled out a scroll, using a lighter to burn it. The paper flamed purple, and from it, a rune of a pentagram appeared suspended in midair. 5 spectral tentacles, glowing a sickly green aura, burst forth and moved to lash Cassandra. She darted between them, slicing each cleanly with her scythe while doing so. The mage became desperate. He bit into his thumb and pressed it to a bracelet formed of metal beads at his wrist. One bead glowed red. He lifted his hand upward, streams of energy flowing into it as though attracted by a magnetic force. A ball of fire grew larger and larger. A low chanting bellowed from the man's throat, coordinated with his free hand. Streams of flames danced and jutted from the body of fire like a tendril to meet his gestures. Fireballs shot out, but kept narrowly missing their mark. Cassandra closed the gap in a second, trying to cleave the man in half, but his enhanced speed allowed him to react just in time to keep the fight mobile. It wasn't enough. The mage tried to use the fire like a whip, but a quick bullet to where he planned on moving sank itself between his ribs. The man stumbled, giving Cassandra enough time to slice off his arm responsible for the ball of flame. He cried out in pain.
Do you have any idea who I work for?
The man wheezed before falling to his knees.
The power behind me is beyond anything you can comprehend.
I don't care, Cassandra muttered. Your men killed the little girl. Now none of you will live to do it again. She pointed her revolver at the man's skull, but hesitated. That was unlike her. I stopped watching from cover and stepped into view, but she still paid me no notice. Instead, she sheathed her scythe and lifted the man into the air with one arm. What is this? The mage grunted.
I should be asking you the same question, Cassandra replied. What could be so important that Cameron needed to send one of his own mages?
Aren't you going to do something?
The mage called to me. That seemed to catch Cassandra's attention. She shot the man through his temple and spun to face me, but she seemed hesitant. I used my eyes to peer behind the mask. Her face shone clearly. A look of a woman in her mid-30s, eyes intelligent, features sharp, but more noticeable than anything else was the curiosity with which she gazed at me, as though discovering a new species of being. You're real? She finally asked. So that's what it was. The mental toll I evaded by receiving an incomplete formula took full effect on her. Poor Cassandra. All this time she was seeing phantoms where none existed, and with nothing to control them, somehow she learned to live with it. How? What are you doing here, Cassandra? I managed to ask through my surprise. You're not dead?
These cultists killed a little girl a few days ago, she said without betraying a single emotion. Now that I think about it, you do look older than I remember.
Then she cocked her gun, still pointing directly at my unmasked face, a reminder that her threat of a bullet was serious.
Are you working with them? She asked.
Not to the extent you're imagining, I replied carefully. Come now, Cassandra, this isn't necessary. The council banished all of us the same as you. The horn of a docking boat sounded loudly from outside the warehouse.
I was not banished, remember? I left. She sighed. And for all I know, your banishment was a clever ploy to take the fall for their misdeeds, all the while still operating under their orders. Don't play me for a fool.
I'm not, I grunted. Honestly, Cassandra, you'd think all these years of life might teach you to lighten up a little. She shook her head defiantly.
I'll give you to the count of 3 to tell me why you're here. Then whatever we had in the past will be severed, and you'll become my enemy. 1.
I was called here by Kaladesh as support in their operation.
What operation?
Her gun kept firmly pointed, waiting for its call to action. Kaladesh placed a hit out on some woman, I explained. A church enforcer coming here by boat. She's probably arriving right now as we speak, so if you're done with your little interrogation, I need to be off. Cassandra lowered her gun, but kept still, considering something.
What brought you back to them?
The serum, I told her while limping away on my cane. This has nothing to do with you, Cassandra. She didn't respond as I left the warehouse, not even to chastise me. A cargo ship was parked on the docks, still being unloaded. I limped faster through the throng of people working amid steam and dockhands carrying wide and heavy loads. Several people came off the boat in a thick crowd, pushing in every which direction towards the marketplace or the main street. No one showed enough common decency to move out of an elderly man's way. They crashed into me time and time again like rolling waves on a beach. I nearly found myself carried away in the current, but somehow I pushed through to the ship and found my target, a woman with dark tanned skin, wearing white robes and carrying a satchel, already slipping through the cracks in the crowd. I followed, quickening my pace to match hers, ignoring the pain of old limbs. The woman ambled around the docks searching for something, perhaps the road out of town, which she had already passed, or perhaps the woman merely wanted to find a stealthier avenue. After all, she had to know she was in dangerous territory. The latter, it seemed. My target chose to head through an alleyway, giving me the perfect opportunity to eliminate her. It seemed too easy, though, but hoping for problems only created them. "Excuse me, miss," I said, in as feeble a voice as I could muster. Even with the rifle on my back, most people never took me for the slightest bit of a threat. With all the downsides of unspeakable age, that was the only silver lining. The woman turned around. Her vibrant face seemed to glow with youth. She may have been 23, maybe 24. I would have killed to experience that age, when everyone said the body was at its best. But alas, I settled for abusing the few perks of being elderly.
"Oh, hello there," she said in a cheery tone. "Is everything all right?"
She was so young and so naive. I limped a few steps closer. "Do you have any crons to spare an old vet?" I asked. The woman placed a hand to her heart, clearly moved by my emotion. A foreign sight to behold.
"Of course I can spare a few crons."
She reached into her satchel and pulled out a wallet. Her eyes lit up.
"Oh no," she gasped. "I only have marks."
"That's quite all right, miss. Anything you can spare will do." She gave me a warm smile and approached with an outstretched hand, holding the money. My moment was arriving. I twisted my cane in hand, feeling the slight click of the sheath unlatching. Just a little closer. A gunshot broke the silence of the alleyway. The woman jumped back, startled. "Get away from him," came Cassandra's voice from behind. "Damn it all. He wants you dead." The woman looked to Cassandra, and then to me, and then back to Cassandra.
But,
She stammered.
"Run or I'll shoot you myself."
Whatever the woman saw in Cassandra's eyes seemed to frighten her well enough, for without a second thought, she fled from the alleyway. "I told you to leave this matter alone," I growled, turning towards Cassandra.
"I can't," she replied simply. "Do yourself a favor and step away while you still have the chance."
"You don't understand." I clicked my sheath back into position and continued using it as a cane. "If I kill that woman, I get the serum. If I get the serum, I can replicate it and disseminate it amongst patients plagued by madness."
"But at what cost, Theo?"
She stepped towards me, planning to go around, but I blocked her way.
"You know you can't stop me."
"Please, Cassandra, give me this one thing." I felt tears wresting themselves from my eyes, emotions building up for far too long. "Please, just let me do one good thing with my life. Let me save millions."
"You will do many more. I feel it in my bones."
She crossed her arms, frustrated.
"Just think about it. The council sends a reaper, an Arkham mage, and a group of cultists with a monstrous pet all to handle one church enforcer. That means something. And while I don't know what exactly, if my hunch is right..."
She bit her lip and stepped right through me, as though I were but air.
"No matter how noble your intentions are, if you acquiesce to the demands of those with hands stained black, you are no better than them."
"Our hands are stained the same as theirs," I replied to no response. I heard her footsteps walking away. Anger gripped me. I twisted my cane and spun around, striking like lightning. The black steel blade slid out of its sheath with ease, cutting clear through the air to strike across Cassandra's backside. But she was fast. Cassandra rolled forward and fired 2 shots back at me. Both dodged. She prepared to fire another shot, but I was too close. My strikes were fast and precise, mixed with blunt attacks by my sheath. She phased through my attacks backwards and switched to her scythe. Beads of sweat rolled down the sides of her face. Prolonged use of powers adversely affects the psyche. Were she too careless with it, my age would no longer be an issue. The scythe came high. I parried and countered with a quick blunt strike to her ribs. The scythe swung around low. I blocked with my sheath and made a quick lunge of the blade, grazing across her thigh. Cassandra pulled her weapon back and fled from the alleyway. I attempted to give chase, but my limp kept me from pursuing at a reasonable speed. On the street, I used my special eyesight to spot Cassandra a block away and the woman a couple more than that. If only I kept Ghost the second on hand. But another horse sat nearby tied to a trough. He looked weak and a little old, but that was good enough for me. I cut the rope, keeping the horse at bay, and took it for a ride. In the skies above, a giant eyeball with tendrils at its backside floated. No doubt, one of the councilmen, if not all of them, was watching the events transpiring on that day. Cassandra made a grave mistake showing her face again. Too many people crowded the streets for me to make a smooth pursuit, but years of riding a horse never truly left the body's memory. I could navigate well around the crowds, and even though the horse paled in comparison to my own, it made do with the commands given. A few minutes of chasing brought me to the central plaza of the business district. Crowds were far diminished, as most were working in their respective offices, making it much easier to spot the woman moving about aimlessly. Although, even had there been crowds of people in the district, her bright white robes, thin golden circlet, 2 silver rings on her left hand, necklace with a star enclosed in a circle, bracelets and earrings in the shape of elder signs made her the brightest object in any setting. From my position on horseback, the target stood a quarter of a mile away. I took out my .22 long rifle and aimed. Sucking in a deep breath, lining my sights with her head, I fired. Panic screams rippled throughout the plaza, and people ran for cover, obscuring my view. But with my sight, I saw the woman still breathing, and the person responsible for what some might call divine intervention. Cassandra helped the girl to her feet and tossed her inside a nearby carriage. I aimed once more.
Freeze!
Someone yelled from behind.
For the sake of order, drop your weapon.
I cocked a glance behind me. 2 policemen held me at gunpoint. I'm sure you're aware that the council has business here today, I said, placing a hand on my mask attached to my waist. Stay out of it, and nothing horrible shall befall this city. The 2 men shuddered. Understanding shone on their faces. Good. I looked back to see the carriage shuffle off down the street. I continued my chase. Winding paths leading up and down hill made for poor conditions to hunt. I tried my best to take shots where possible, but the carriage moved too unpredictably along with the bumpy ride brought upon by my horse. 7 shots I fired in total, and only 2 managed to pierce the carriage. 1 seemed to hit its mark, but the target conjured up some sort of spectral armor around her torso. I'd have an easier time on the rocky waves of an ocean. Finally, we came to a clear overpass. A train ran underneath, leaving a trail of smoke as I traveled by. I worried the clouds might help obscure their escape, but once it cleared, the carriage was stopped halfway through the overpass. I slowed my horse to a canter. Let's make this easy on ourselves, I called out. If you want to duel Cassandra, I won't stop you, but this can all end if you just leave the girl to her fate. No response. If it were an ambush they wanted, Cassandra would do well to remember my abilities. I used my sight again, feeling the familiar ache of the bones, and glanced at the contents of the carriage. Shit. I would have done well to remember her abilities. They were gone. I looked over to the train, getting further and further away, and realized my opportunity was lost. That was it. I slumped down against the side of the carriage and leaned back. There truly was no use for my old self in the world. No use at all.